Maya Johnson steps through the revolving glass doors of Goldman Sachs at exactly 2:45 p.m., 15 minutes early for what will become the most documented discrimination case in Wall Street history. The 45-year-old CEO wears a simple navy blazer and carries a worn leather portfolio, the kind that speaks of substance over flash. Her movements are deliberate, unhurried, betraying none of the storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. The marble lobby stretches before her like a cathedral of capitalism, all soaring ceilings and muted conversations about billion. Maya approaches the reception desk where Jennifer Martinez, a 28-year-old receptionist with perfectly styled blonde hair, glances up with the practiced indifference reserved for those deemed unimportant. The look lasts exactly 3 seconds too long enough to catalog Maya's appearance and file it under problem. "Excuse me," Maya says, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms. "I have a 3 o'clock appointment with Mr. Williams regarding the BlackRock merger." Jennifer's fingers pause over her keyboard. Her eyes travel from Maya's simple outfit to her natural hairstyle, processing information through filters Maya knows all too well. "I don't see your name on the VIP list. Are you sure you have the right building?" The question hangs in the air like smoke, acrid and unmistakable. Maya places her business card on the marble counter. Maya Johnson, CEO of Pinnacle Investment Group. Jennifer picks up the card as if it might contaminate her manicured fingers, glances at it with theatrical skepticism, then sets it down without ceremony. Anyone can print cards these days. "I'll need verification from Mr. Williams' assistant." The rejection is swift, clean, practiced. Maya recognizes the choreography. She's witnessed it before, in different buildings, different cities, always with the same underlying rhythm. Her phone buzzes with messages from her board members, but she doesn't check them. Not yet. Instead, she steps back from the desk and observes. A white businessman in his 30s approaches the same desk moments later. Jennifer's transformation is immediate. Spine straightening, smile brightening like sunrise. "Good afternoon, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Williams is expecting you on the 47th floor. Right this way. No card required. No verification needed. Just smooth passage through golden gates that remain firmly locked for others." Maya watches this theater of privilege unfold, her expression unchanged. But something shifts behind her eyes. A calculation beginning, pieces moving on a board only she can see. The woman who built a company from nothing, who survived hostile takeovers and weathered economic storms, now faces a different kind of battlefield. One where the weapons are assumptions and the casualties are dignity. You won't believe what happens when they discover who they're really dealing with. Maya settles into a leather chair near the elevators, her posture radiating the patience of someone who has learned to wait strategically. She opens her portfolio and reviews documents that will soon reshape the conversation entirely: merger agreements, financial projections, and authorization letters that carry the weight of billions. But for now, these remain hidden, her power camouflaged behind deliberate ordinariness. The security manager, David Thompson, emerges from behind a pillar where he's been observing. Thompson is 42, built like a former police officer, with eyes that catalog threats both real and imagined. His gaze settles on Maya with the intensity of a predator identifying prey. Everything about his approach suggests this is routine, practiced, necessary. "Ma'am, I notice you've been here for a while. Is there some kind of problem?" Thompson's voice carries authority wrapped in false concern. Maya looks up from her documents, meeting his stare with unflinching calm. "No problem at all. I'm waiting for my 3 o'clock appointment with Mr. Williams about our merger discussion." Thompson's laugh is sharp, dismissive. "Merger discussion? Ma'am, with all due respect, I think there might be some confusion here." He signals to Jennifer, who nods and reaches for her phone. The implication hangs unspoken but clear. This woman doesn't belong in conversations about mergers, about billions, about anything that matters in this temple of high finance. Maya continues reading her documents, each page turned deliberate and unhurried. Thompson shifts his weight, clearly expecting a different reaction. Protests, explanations, the defensive scrambling of someone caught in a lie. Instead, he gets silence that speaks volumes. Maya Johnson has faced down hostile boards, weathered market crashes, and built an empire through calculated patience. A security guard's suspicion barely registers on her scale of challenges. "I'm going to need to verify your identity," Thompson announces, his voice growing louder. "We've had problems with people trying to gain unauthorized access." The word people carries weight, loaded with implications that echo through generations of exclusion. Maya finally looks up, her gaze steady and measuring. "Of course. What would you like to verify?" Her compliance is complete but somehow unsettling, like watching someone willingly step into a trap they've set themselves. Thompson, accustomed to resistance or intimidation, finds himself navigating unexpected calm. Jennifer approaches with 2 additional security guards, creating a semicircle of uniforms around Maya's chair. The theater is almost complete now. The dangerous outsider, the protective establishment, the implied threat to order and safety. Other visitors pause to watch, some recording with phones, sensing drama about to unfold. But Maya simply closes her portfolio and waits. She doesn't argue or demand or threaten. She doesn't mention the billions at stake or the merger documents in her briefcase. Instead, she observes the machinery of bias grinding into motion, each gear turning according to ancient patterns of assumption and exclusion. The woman who will soon reshape their understanding of power gives them all the rope they need. The whispers begin immediately. Office workers pause in their conversations, heads turning toward the gathering crowd around the quiet black woman who seems somehow dangerous just by existing in their space. The murmurs carry familiar undertones, questions about security, about procedures, about people who don't understand their place. Thompson leans closer, his voice dropping to a confidential tone that somehow manages to be heard throughout the lobby. "Look, I'm trying to help you here, but you're making this difficult. People like..." He pauses, the words hovering in the space between thought and speech. "People in your situation need to understand that we have protocols." Maya's expression doesn't change. She doesn't flinch at the barely veiled reference to her race, doesn't rise to the bait of implied criminality. Instead, she reaches into her purse and activates the voice recording app on her phone, a simple gesture that somehow feels like drawing a sword. The small device captures everything: Thompson's tone, Jennifer's snickers, the growing crowd of onlookers treating discrimination like entertainment. "I said turn that off." Thompson's composure cracks for the first time. "This is a secure facility. You can't just record whatever you want." But Maya's finger remains on the screen, the red recording indicator glowing like a warning light. "I'm in a public lobby, exercising my legal rights. Unless you're planning to do something you wouldn't want recorded." The question hangs in the air, sharp as a blade. Thompson calls for backup, his radio crackling with codes and urgency. Jennifer types frantically on her computer, probably documenting the incident for security reports. But Maya simply sits, recording, waiting, watching the institution reveal itself with every passing moment. The crowd grows larger. Some onlookers film with their phones, sensing viral content in the making. Others whisper among themselves, debating whether the quiet black woman represents a security threat or something else entirely. The lobby buzzes with nervous energy as power structures strain against an unexpected challenge. Maya opens her messages and types a brief note to her assistant. "Situation developing at Goldman. May need intervention." She also updates her Instagram story, just a photo of the Goldman Sachs lobby with the caption, "Interesting experience at major investment bank. Some systems never change." No names, no accusations, just documentation of a moment that's about to explode across social media. Thompson returns with reinforcements, his authority bolstered by numbers. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me for additional screening. We have reasons to believe you might be attempting to gain unauthorized access to restricted areas." The language is carefully chosen, legally defensible, wrapped in the protective armor of corporate policy. Maya stands slowly, her movements carrying the weight of someone who has decided the time for patience has ended. "Mr. Thompson, I need you to understand something very clearly. I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm not submitting to additional screening. And I'm not leaving this lobby until my 3 o'clock appointment with Mr. Williams begins as scheduled. Her voice carries a new edge now, quiet but unmistakable. Thompson steps back involuntarily, sensing a shift in the dynamic he can't quite identify. The woman he thought he was dealing with, confused, out of place, potentially fraudulent, has been replaced by someone else entirely, someone who knows exactly where she belongs and why. Jennifer abandons all pretense of professionalism. Look, lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't the place for it. People like you can apply for cleaning positions through HR. But don't pretend you belong in executive meetings. We know where you really belong. The words sliced through the lobby like a blade, cutting away any remaining doubt about motivations and intentions. Maya doesn't respond immediately. Instead, she pulls out her phone and makes a call. James, I need you to begin documentation for a discrimination case. Yes, at Goldman Sachs. No, I'm not surprised either. The crowd stirs as pieces begin falling into place. The woman they've been watching isn't some confused outsider or potential security threat. She's someone with lawyers on speed dial, someone documenting everything, someone building a case with each passing moment of bias and discrimination. Thompson's radio crackles with increasingly urgent chatter. Someone from upper management is asking questions. Someone wants to know why a simple security check has drawn a crowd. Someone is starting to realize that the afternoon's entertainment might become tomorrow's lawsuit. Maya ends her call and turns to the gathered crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, you're witnessing something important here. You're seeing how institutional bias operates, how assumptions about race and class create barriers that shouldn't exist. I hope you'll remember what you've seen today. Her words carry the authority of someone accustomed to addressing rooms full of decision-makers. The crowd quiets, sensing gravitas in the moment. Some continue filming, now understanding they're documenting history rather than just drama. Jennifer's face flushes red as the implications sink in. Thompson shifts uncomfortably, perhaps realizing his security procedures have become Exhibit A in a discrimination case. But the momentum has already built beyond their control. What started as routine exclusion has become a public reckoning. Maya checks her watch, 3:15 p.m. I'm now 15 minutes late for my appointment. Mr. Williams is probably wondering where I am. She speaks to the crowd but looks directly at Thompson and Jennifer. I imagine he'll have questions about why his 3 o'clock meeting has been delayed. The words land like stones in still water, sending ripples through the assembled group. For the first time, doubt creeps into the security team's certainty. What if this woman really does have an appointment? What if their assumptions have created exactly the kind of liability nightmare corporations fear most? But they've gone too far to retreat now. The machinery of bias, once set in motion, proves difficult to stop. The first sign that everything is about to change comes as a whisper from Jennifer's headset. Her face goes pale as she listens, her eyes widening with each word from whoever is speaking in her ear. Thompson notices the change immediately. 20 years in security have taught him to read fear in all its form. What is it, he asks. But Jennifer is still listening, her hand pressed against her earpiece as if she can't quite believe what she's hearing. The lobby continues its nervous chatter, but something has shifted in the atmosphere. The confident righteousness that fueled the last hour begins to evaporate like morning mist. Maya watches this transformation with the detached interest of someone observing a chess match nearing its conclusion. She doesn't check her phone or appear anxious about the time. Instead, she seems to be waiting for something specific, something inevitable. Jennifer finally removes her hand from the earpiece, her movements shaky. When she speaks, her voice cracks slightly. Mr. Thompson, we need to. We have a situation. Thompson moves closer, lowering his voice. But Maya can hear every word in the suddenly quiet lobby. That was Mr. Williams' office. They're asking about Maya Johnson. She's supposed to be in a meeting about a $7 billion merger. Jennifer's words fall like hammer blows, each one reshaping the reality that everyone thought they understood. They want to know why she's not in the conference room. Thompson's face goes through a series of transformations: confusion, recognition, and finally, pure terror. The quiet black woman sitting in their lobby isn't some confused outsider or potential security threat. She's the CEO they've been humiliating for the past hour. She's the client representing billions in business. She's the person who could end careers with a single phone call. 7 billion? Thompson's voice barely qualifies as a whisper. Maya stands slowly, smoothing her blazer with deliberate care. Actually, it's 7.3 billion when you include the subsidiary acquisitions. But who's counting? The lobby falls silent except for the soft ding of elevator arrivals. Maya's voice cuts through the quiet with surgical precision. Mr. Thompson, Miss Martinez, I believe Mr. Williams would like to see me now. Jennifer's hands shake as she reaches for her phone. Thompson stands frozen, apparently unable to process the complete reversal of everything he thought he knew. The crowd of onlookers has grown silent too, sensing the magnitude of the mistake they've witnessed. Maya's phone buzzes with a text message. She glances at it and smiles. The first genuine smile she's shown since entering the building. That's my assistant. She's informing me that the SEC has already received a complaint about today's events. Amazing how quickly word travels in the digital age. The elevator opens with a soft chime, and Michael Williams himself steps out. The CEO of Goldman Sachs Investment Banking Division looks exactly like what he is, a powerful man accustomed to control, now facing a situation that spiraled far beyond his ability to manage quietly. Maya. His voice carries relief, anger, and desperate damage control in equal measure. I'm so sorry. What the hell happened down here? Williams moves quickly across the lobby, his presence causing the crowd to part automatically. Behind him trail two assistants and what appears to be the head of building security. Maya doesn't move toward Williams. Instead, she lets him come to her, maintaining the position she's held for over an hour, the position where she was questioned, intimidated, and humiliated. Michael, I've been having a very educational conversation with your staff about company culture and client service. Williams reaches her side and immediately turns to Thompson and Jennifer with barely controlled fury. Miss Johnson is not just our client. She's the CEO of Pinnacle Investment Group. They're acquiring 3 of our divisions. This is a $7 billion transaction, and you've been treating her like a criminal. The words hit Thompson like physical blows. Jennifer slumps against her desk, the full weight of her afternoon's work finally clear. The security guards who backed up Thompson begin edging away, suddenly very interested in other parts of the lobby. Maya's Instagram story has gone viral. The simple photo of the Goldman Sachs lobby has been shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from outrage to disbelief. Hashtag Goldman Sachs, racial profiling, Wall Street begin trending as the story spreads beyond the confines of the marble lobby. Maya, please, Williams says, his voice carrying the desperation of someone watching billions in business relationship dissolve in real time. Let's go upstairs and discuss this privately. We can resolve whatever misunderstanding occurred here. Maya tilts her head slightly, considering his words. Misunderstanding? Michael, there was no misunderstanding. Your staff performed exactly as they were trained. They identified someone who didn't look like they belonged and acted accordingly. The only mistake was assuming I couldn't do anything about it. Williams turns to his security chief, a man who has suddenly discovered urgent business elsewhere in the building. I want a full report on my desk within the hour. I want to know every policy that allowed this to happen and every person who was involved. But Maya raises her hand, stopping the damage control in its tracks. Don't punish them for following the system, Michael. Punish the system that taught them this was acceptable. Her words carry the weight of someone who has thought deeply about these issues, someone prepared for this exact moment. The crowd in the lobby has grown to nearly 50 people. Security tries to disperse them, but this has become a public event now, documented on dozens of phones and shared across social media platforms. The story is writing itself in real time, beyond anyone's ability to control or contain. Thompson makes one last attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Miss Johnson, we were just following security protocols. We couldn't have known. But Maya cuts him off with a look that could freeze hellfire. Mr. Thompson, you knew exactly what you were doing. You followed those protocols because they've worked before. Because most people in my position don't have the resources to fight back. because the system has protected you while it excluded others. Her voice never rises, but it fills the lobby with quiet authority. Williams checks his watch, clearly calculating how much damage control he can attempt before the market opens tomorrow. But Maya is already moving toward the elevator, her afternoon's work apparently complete. The meeting can proceed as scheduled, she announces to the lobby. I'm here to discuss business, not to relitigate the civil rights movement. But I want everyone to remember what they've seen today. Because this is how institutional bias works when it thinks no one is watching. The elevator doors open, and Maya steps inside. Williams follows quickly, along with his assistants. As the doors begin to close, Maya looks directly at Thompson and Jennifer one final time. You should update your LinkedIn profiles tonight, she says quietly. Tomorrow might be a good day to start job hunting. The elevator doors close with the finality of a judge's gavel, leaving behind a lobby buzzing with nervous energy and the growing understanding that they've all witnessed something that will reshape more than just careers. Within 6 hours of Maya's elevator ride to the 47th floor, the first termination letters are drafted. Williams convenes an emergency meeting with Goldman's board, where the conversation revolves not around the $7 billion merger, which proceeds as planned with favorable terms for Pinnacle, but around the viral videos that have cost the company an estimated $50 million in market value before the close of trading. Thompson clears out his desk that evening, his 20-year career in corporate security ending with a 2-paragraph termination letter citing conduct incompatible with company values and discriminatory behavior that resulted in significant reputational damage. The letter will be the only reference he receives from Goldman Sachs, effectively blacklisting him from similar positions throughout the financial sector. Jennifer faces a similar fate. Her termination, delivered by HR with uncomfortable efficiency, references unprofessional conduct, discriminatory language, and violation of client service standards. The cheerful blonde who spent her afternoon humiliating Maya Johnson will spend her evening explaining to family and friends why her promising career in finance ended with a viral video. Robert Hayes, the senior manager who escalated the situation, discovers that climbing the corporate ladder works both ways. His demotion to a regional office in Albany comes with a 40% salary cut and the understanding that his advancement prospects at Goldman have evaporated entirely. The company needs someone to pay for the systemic failures, and Hayes becomes the sacrifice. VP Jennifer Walsh, whose discrimination record reveals this wasn't her first offense, faces suspension pending a full investigation. The SEC has already opened files on 3 previous complaints against her, suddenly viewing her pattern of behavior through the lens of federal discrimination law. Her corporate law degree, once a source of pride, now seems inadequate preparation for the legal storm approaching her career. Maya's legal team, led by civil rights attorney James Morrison, begins building a class action case that extends far beyond the events of a single afternoon. The discrimination she faced represents the tip of an iceberg that Morrison intends to expose completely. Within days, they receive calls from dozens of other victims who faced similar treatment at Goldman and other major financial institutions. The financial impact extends beyond individual careers. Goldman Sachs stock drops 3% in after-hours trading as investors process the reputational damage. Client withdrawals begin immediately, with pension funds and institutional investors questioning whether they want to be associated with a company that treats billion-dollar clients based on racial assumptions. Major news networks pick up the story by evening. CNN runs a segment titled "The $7 Billion Humiliation," while MSNBC leads with "Racism Costs Goldman Sachs." Financial networks focus on the market impact, but the human element drives the broader conversation about systemic bias in American business. Maya's own company benefits dramatically from the exposure. Pinnacle Investment Group's stock rises 15% as investors applaud her stand against discrimination. New business inquiries flood her office from companies that want to be associated with principled leadership. The $7 billion merger proceeds with terms even more favorable than originally negotiated, as Goldman desperately attempts to maintain the business relationship. The viral video reaches 5 million views within 24 hours, Comments range from outrage to support, but the overwhelming response supports Maya's dignified handling of institutional bias. Hashtag Maya Johnson begins trending alongside and hashtag Goldman Sachs as social media users share their own experiences with workplace discrimination. Thompson attempts to salvage his reputation through a LinkedIn post explaining his side of the story, but the post only draws more attention to his role in the discrimination. Corporate security firms across Manhattan quietly remove his name from consideration for future positions. At 52, with 2 decades of experience suddenly transformed into liability, Thompson faces the reality of starting over in a different industry. Jennifer's social media accounts, once filled with professional aspirations and weekend highlights, go dark after the story breaks. Friends and former colleagues distance themselves as the video spreads through their network. The ambitious young professional who saw herself climbing the corporate ladder discovers that discriminatory behavior can end careers faster than any recession. Goldman's damage control extends beyond individual terminations. The company announces a comprehensive review of diversity policies, hiring practices, and security protocols. They commit to hiring an external firm to audit their culture and implement bias training for all employees. These measures, while necessary, feel reactive rather than proactive, responses to public pressure rather than genuine commitment to change. Maya watches these developments unfold from her corner office overlooking Central Park. The view has always reminded her of possibility, the endless expanse of green in the heart of concrete and steel, nature persisting despite urban pressure. Today, it seems particularly appropriate as she considers the changes rippling outward from a single afternoon's courage. Her assistant, Mary Rodriguez, brings updates throughout the evening. Interview requests from major networks, invitations to speak at business schools, and expressions of support from CEOs across industries. The woman who walked into Goldman Sachs as a client has emerged as a symbol of resistance against institutional bias. But Maya feels no satisfaction in the destruction of individual careers. Thompson and Jennifer were symptoms of a larger disease, foot soldiers in an army they didn't realize they'd joined. Their terminations, while necessary, represent only the beginning of the work required to address systemic discrimination in American business. The real victory lies not in punishment but in prevention, in the conversations starting in boardrooms across the country about implicit bias, about assumption, about the costs of exclusion in an interconnected economy. Maya's afternoon in the Goldman Sachs lobby has become a case study that will be discussed in business schools and diversity training sessions for years to come. As the sun sets over Manhattan, casting long shadows across the financial district, Maya prepares for the next phase of her response. The terminations and stock drops represent justice, but not change. Real change requires sustained effort, institutional commitment, and the courage to examine systems that have operated unchallenged for generations. Tomorrow, she will announce the Equal Access Foundation, funded with $100 million from her personal wealth and dedicated to supporting minority entrepreneurs while fighting workplace discrimination. Tonight, she simply watches the city lights twinkle like stars, knowing that sometimes progress comes not through gradual evolution but through moments of sharp, undeniable clarity. The Goldman Sachs building stands illuminated against the darkness, its lights burning late, as executives work to contain damage that has already spread far beyond their ability to control. In boardrooms and coffee shops, in social media feeds and evening news broadcasts, the conversation has begun about power, assumption, and the price of prejudice in modern America. Maya Johnson has accomplished something remarkable. She has made the invisible visible, forced the comfortable to confront the uncomfortable, and demonstrated that dignity and strategic thinking can triumph over institutional bias. The $7 billion merger will be forgotten in a few months, but the afternoon that began with, "You don't belong here," will be remembered for years as the day one woman's patience and preparation changed the conversation about equality in American business. 1 week after the Goldman Sachs incident, Maya stands before a packed auditorium at Harvard Business School. The invitation came within 48 hours of the video going viral, part of the school's speaker series on leadership and social responsibility. But tonight feels different, less like a typical corporate presentation and more like a reckoning with America's business culture. The audience includes MBA students, faculty, business leaders, and journalists drawn by the promise of insight into an event that has dominated headlines for days. Maya approaches the podium with the same measured pace that carried her through the Goldman lobby, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. "Good evening," she begins, her voice carrying easily through the hall. "I want to start by addressing what this incident was not about. This was not about revenge. It was not about destroying individual careers or damaging Goldman Sachs specifically. It was about accountability and the systems that allow discrimination to flourish in environments where it should be impossible." The auditorium is silent except for the soft scratch of note-taking and the occasional camera click from journalists documenting her first public statement since the incident. Maya pauses, letting her words settle before continuing. "I had advantages that most people facing discrimination do not have. I had wealth, education, legal resources, and the luxury of time. I could afford to wait in that lobby for over an hour, documenting everything, building a case. Most people in similar situations cannot. They need their jobs. They fear retaliation. They lack the resources to fight back." A student in the front row raises her hand tentatively. Maya nods for her to speak. "Miss Johnson, some critics have said you could have avoided the whole situation by simply identifying yourself immediately. Why didn't you?" Maya considers the question, understanding its implications. Because the moment someone has to prove they belong somewhere is the moment we've already accepted that belonging is conditional. "I shouldn't have needed to present credentials to sit in a public lobby. My race shouldn't have triggered assumptions about my purpose or my worthiness." She moves away from the podium, walking closer to the audience. "More importantly, if I had immediately revealed my identity, we would never have seen how the system truly operates. The discrimination would have been hidden behind apologies and explanations about misunderstandings. The patterns would have remained invisible." A business reporter from the Wall Street Journal asks about the broader implications. "What do you hope to achieve beyond the individual consequences we've seen at Goldman?" Maya's response reveals the strategic thinking that built her company and guided her through the afternoon that changed everything. Real change requires more than firing a few employees who got caught on camera. It requires examining the assumptions that created those behaviors in the first place. She returns to the podium and clicks to her first slide, statistics about minority representation in financial services leadership, about pay gaps, about promotion rates. The numbers tell a story of systematic exclusion that makes the Goldman incident seem inevitable, rather than aberrational. "This is why I'm announcing the Equal Access Foundation tonight," Maya continues. $100 million in initial funding to support minority entrepreneurs, provide legal resources for discrimination cases, and research the economic costs of bias in American business. The announcement draws murmurs from the audience. $100 million represents more than philanthropy. It's a declaration of war against systemic inequality, funded by someone with both the resources and the motivation to sustain a long campaign. A faculty member asks about the foundation's specific goals. Maya's answer reveals months of planning that preceded the Goldman incident, suggesting that her patience in that lobby was part of a larger strategy. "We will provide seed funding for minority-owned businesses that face traditional barriers to capital. We will offer legal support for discrimination cases that individuals cannot afford to pursue alone. And we will research the economic inefficiencies created by bias. Because exclusion doesn't just harm individuals, it damages entire markets." She clicks to another slide showing economic research about diverse leadership and improved company performance. Goldman Sachs's stock drop wasn't just about bad publicity. It reflected investor recognition that companies practicing discrimination are poor investments. They waste talent, miss opportunities, and expose themselves to legal and reputational risks. The presentation continues for another 30 minutes. But the core message is clear. Maya Johnson has transformed a moment of personal humiliation into a platform for institutional change. The quiet woman who sat in the Goldman lobby has become a voice for systematic reform in American business. During the question period, a young man asks whether she feels vindicated by the aftermath. Maya's response cuts to the heart of what the incident revealed about power, patience, and strategic thinking. Vindication suggests I needed to prove something to those people. I didn't. I know who I am and what I've accomplished. What happened that afternoon was educational. For them, for the witnesses, for everyone watching the videos. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is allow people to reveal themselves completely. As the evening concludes, Maya offers final thoughts that transform her personal experience into universal lessons about dignity, resistance, and the long arc of justice. I want to leave you with this thought. Every time you witness discrimination and choose silence, you become complicit in its perpetuation. Every time you speak up, you become part of the solution. The choice is always yours, but the consequences extend far beyond your individual comfort. She pauses, surveying the audience one final time. Remember that true power isn't about what you can take from others. It's about what you can give back to your community, your industry, your society. Success without service is just sophisticated selfishness. The standing ovation that follows lasts nearly 5 minutes. But Maya has already moved beyond applause to the work ahead, building institutions, changing policies, and ensuring that no one else faces the choice between dignity and opportunity that defined her afternoon at Goldman Sachs. As she leaves the Harvard stage, Maya carries with her the weight of expectation and the clarity of purpose that transforms individual victories into lasting change. The woman who walked into Goldman Sachs as a client has emerged as a leader in the fight against institutional bias, armed with resources, platform, and the unshakable conviction that progress requires both patience and action. The Equal Access Foundation will open its doors within 6 months, funded not just by Maya's initial commitment, but by contributions from business leaders who recognize that equality isn't just morally necessary, but economically essential. The discrimination that began in a marble lobby will end in boardrooms across America, as companies realize that bias is not just wrong, but expensive. Tonight, as Maya returns to her apartment overlooking Central Park, she reflects on the journey from humiliation to empowerment that began with a simple refusal to be diminished by other people's assumptions. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Not just seeking justice for past wrongs, but building systems that prevent future ones. The city spreads below her windows like a constellation of possibility, each light representing someone trying to build something better than what they inherited. Maya Johnson has shown them that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of resistance. Sitting quietly in a lobby, refusing to accept that belonging must be earned, and demonstrating that dignity is not negotiable. Her phone buzzes with messages from entrepreneurs seeking foundation support, journalists requesting interviews, and business leaders asking how they can contribute to the cause. But tonight, Maya simply watches the city and plans for tomorrow, knowing that the work of change requires both the patience to endure and the courage to act when the moment arrives. The Goldman Sachs incident will be studied in business schools for decades, not just as a case study in crisis management, but as an example of how individual courage can expose systemic failures. Maya Johnson's afternoon of strategic patience has become a masterclass in turning personal adversity into institutional change. As the lights of Manhattan twinkle in the darkness, the woman who refused to accept her assigned place in someone else's hierarchy prepares for the next phase of a battle that extends far beyond any single company or industry. The fight for equality in American business has found its leader, and she carries the quiet confidence of someone who has already proven that dignity and determination can triumph over institutional bias. Your move. Make it count.